because we were making wine. And that's because we were making wine since the 15th century, but also some oil and flour. And that's why in the middle of the vines over there, you have a big tower, which is known windmill, where we used to do flour and oil. So over here, my boss bought the place in 1997. Originally, he and his wife were not winemakers. She was a lawyer, and he was a CEO of a French company called Darty, retail shop company. And when he turned 48, he decided to do a complete turnover in his career. He went back to school, he studied winemaking for 3 years, and then he bought the place. So now he's fully involved in all the winemaking process. He's 73, so he's not doing any of the work in the vines by hand anymore, but he's always there for the tastings and the blendings, obviously. So we just started the harvest. You're going to see plenty of people working and pipes and stuff. So we started on Thursday last week as a test, and today is the first official day. So we do everything by hand, and we are going to harvest the 2022 vintage that we are going to take roughly 2 years to make. Then we bottle it, and we are going to sell it approximately September, October 2024. 2 years. So 2022 was an interesting year, I will say. We started to harvest last week because we wanted to see the yield, how much we were going to make, because this year was very dry. And the fact that we didn't have any water, it has a big impact on the vines, especially since in this region it's completely forbidden to irrigate most of the vines. In most wine regions, the trolls have been making wine for the past 100, maybe 1500 or 2000 years, which means that there was no irrigation at the time in those regions. So we think 2000 years later, that should be the same. It's not very good to think about it when you know about climate change, because it's going to obviously have an impact on the weather and the quality of the grapes. So we are thinking in the future, because we're not allowed to irrigate, that we are going to make very small berries because we don't have any juice anymore, but because it's very small, like this year, it's going to be very concentrated. So the aromas and the quality of the wine are going to be exceptional. On the other hand, because it's very small, all the sugar that you have inside is going to be very, very high level. The thing is, the sugar that you have inside is what we turn into alcohol during the fermentation. So the more sugar you have, the more alcohol you're going to end up with. And we think in 2022, we're thinking we're going to make maybe a wine at 17 degrees of alcohol.
Which is allowed.
It's not legal. It's not legal. It's a martini. It doesn't matter. So no, it's not legal. But if we follow the rules, like we should not, in most of the red wines, we should not have sugar left after the fermentation. So obviously we have to change everything. And 17 degrees is a bit too much. Even for a drinker, it's just too much. So we are going to drop the level 1 or 2 degrees. We are using 2 methods for this. First is the aging in barrels. When you age in barrels, you lose a small amount of alcohol that is going to be absorbed by the wood, or that is going to evaporate. We call it the angel's share in English. So you have a small amount, you can lose up to 1.2 degrees, which is good. And we are probably going to use another method, which is called osmosis, which separates the water from the alcohol. And then this way we can remove a small amount of alcohol, then reblend everything together. All of this, we're thinking we're going to lose, maybe 3 degrees. So we're going to drop at 14.5, something like this. And that's going to be better. We also try to explore new varieties of grapes that could adapt to climate. When you're in the area of Saint-Emilion, so most places in the region are by areas, which means if you follow the rules and grow vines on this specific place and make the wine there, you're allowed to be called a certain name, like a Saint-Emilion, Pauillac, Médoc, everything that you do in Bordeaux. So in here, on the area of Saint-Emilion, we have a limited amount of varieties of grapes that we can use. We can use 6 different types of grapes, and we decided to plant all of them and see how it goes. We have different types of soils. So most of the hill is made with limestone, which goes perfectly with Merlot that we have in huge quantity. 70% of our vineyard is with Merlot. Then you have some Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon that we planted mostly on the terraces because you have some limestone with layers of clay. So it's very good for humidity. And down the slopes, if you look, you have a road over there. Everything on this side is ours. And so down the slopes we have some gravel and sand, which are very hot. They're going to keep the heat. So we planted on it Carmenère, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. So 6 different types of grapes, and we blend everything in all. Oh yes, we do.
Rare.
Yeah, and that's understandable. It's very difficult to get it right. It's just never a good maturity. 2015 is perfect with Petit Verdot because it was very hot. But last year, for example, that was the first year we harvested it, wasn't the best quality.
So we just started with it.
We really started. We're going to blend some from 2021, but yes, 2022 first year was very good quality. But it's like 1, 2, or 3%, so it's not that much. So we have 41 hectares of vines, which makes about 100 acres, and our territory is going down the road that you have over here, up the hill where you parked your car. We also have a few hectares across the road and a small valley behind the chateau. So all together. And my colleagues for the next 2 weeks are going to harvest everything by hand. We are 20 employees working here all year long, and we hire 40 to 50 extras to help us during the harvest. It's actually very physical, and there's a lot of turnover, but that's fine for now. So if you want, we're going to go inside the winery. I'm just going to tell you, be very careful with your feet. We have some pipes everywhere. So before I show you the whole thing about the harvest, you're here in the historical winery. So the building is from the 16th century, and my boss, that is we made all this room at the end of the 90s, in 1997 and 1998. So in here, we use mostly concrete vats, but we also built a brand new winery with stainless steel. So we try to use both. At the end of the 90s, my boss went over with concrete, like this, because concrete has many good qualities. One of the main qualities of concrete is that during the fermentation, it doesn't go too high in temperatures. It keeps the temperatures very low. When we do the harvest, we are going to pass through the machines that you'll see. Then we are going to bring everything to different machines to do a selection. And then we put everything inside the vats over there. To start the fermentation, we are going to add some yeasts inside. It's a powder. And the yeasts are going to eat the sugar and turn it into alcohol. It's what we call the alcoholic fermentation, and it takes a week to be done, sometimes 5 days. Very fast. During this fermentation, all the yeasts are working and they develop some CO2, and the CO2 is a gas, so we can up the temperature very fast and very quickly. So the main problem is if you are in a metal vat that is not specifically made to control the temperature, it goes too high and you can lose a whole lot of wine. So we are going to do the fermentations in here. We are currently filling some of the vats that we have. So 5 to 7 days for the alcoholic fermentation. And then we are going to do the malolactic fermentation, which is another fermentation where we add bacteria. And these bacteria are going to eat the malic acid, which is the same acidity you find in the green apples, the granices. So it's a fermentation that is very slow. The bacteria eat the malic acid and turn it into lactic acid, the type of acidity you find in milk or yogurt. It's going to smooth the wine out through most of the acidity and settle up the bonjour. So this way we are going to find a nice balance. It takes 3 weeks for the malolactic fermentation. So in a month you can have a nice wine. And after this is our job to do 2 selections. The first selection we are going to do the tour and taste each of the vats. There's little taps everywhere. So we taste everything. We are going to taste and then make a list of the qualities, the defaults and all those things, and say, okay, so this one is the best quality. It's going to go in the first selection wine that is going to be aged for 1.5 years. It's called in French a Grand Cru Classé. It's part of the classification of the wines in Saint-Denis. And so this one is going to be the main wine that we're very proud of the shop. Then we do a second tour, and all the others we're going to take a second selection and make a second wine with it. A second wine usually is just to be something that you are not going to keep as long as the first selection, and you're going to be able to drink when it's younger. Also, it's going to be less expensive than the first one. So it's usually for people that want to start to have nice bottles of wine. So For this one, the second selection, we're going to age it for 6 months instead of a year and a half. And after this, we always have some leftovers, something that is too acidic or not very good quality. And the leftovers, we're going to take it and ship it to wine merchants in Bordeaux. And they are going to blend it with some other wine from everywhere in Bordeaux and make it a very generic bottle of wine you find in supermarkets at a very cheap price. Yeah, it has the content on it. And once we have all this selection, we are going to age everything in oak barrel. I'm going to take you to the oak barrel room in the brand new winery, but first we are going to go in front of the equipment for the harvest. Alright, so you're here in the brand new winery. So all of the things you select after this is going inside the stainless steel kind of things that you can see the boxes. And in here you have Edwin, which is our winemaker. We call it maître de chai in French. And somewhere that you have the Nordic French tractors, the burning in Celtic, so you just observe everything inside. At the same time, the bucket state is actually all of the yeasts. So this way we can start the fermentation. So also you have my colleague Steve over there who's taking samples, and we are going to test the wine every day to see the amount of sugar there, the amount of CO2 we have inside, how long we're going to take to do the fermentation, the temperatures, we have the texture, so everything is controlled. And those vats are made with stainless steel, and if you look on the side, you have some patches with holes inside that you can inject cold or hot. So this place was made in 2020, and my boss wanted to do a half underground winery, meaning that we were on ground level above us, and right now we are underground. Everything was carved out into the stone. This way, in this room, we don't need any air conditioning. It's always like this. During the winter, it's a bit colder, but it controls the temperature naturally. If we have a problem and the wine is in danger, we have the small things that you can see on the side over there, where we can inject cold or hot. There's a lot of yeasts. So I was joking earlier because my colleague was just filling all of the buckets to do the samples. And if you taste it now, it tastes like a very, very bad grape. It's just like this. So he's probably going to start the yeast like this and have it. So in this room you have some 2021 vintage. So all of the barrels you have over here are made with French oak. We are going to age 2 different types of wines from Saint-Emilion, one for 6 months and the other for a year and a half. The fact that we age the wine in oak barrel is because we need to take a few things from the oak. The first thing that we knew are tannins. The thing is, to be honest, tannins are real life storing tools. Most people do not know what that is. Usually they can describe it, eventually the taste, but we don't really know where it comes from. So tannins, when you taste it, are drying and bitter. If you have, for example, you have tannins in tea. If you let it infuse too long and you have the bitterness, it actually comes from the tannin of the leaves. Tannins are a molecule that you find in huge quantity in the wood, in the seeds, on the skin of the berries of grapes, for example, but some other things like for courgettes and things like this. And you also have some tannins in leaves. That's why tea finds them. The thing is, tannins are a molecule that help to keep the wine for a time. It works as a conservative. The more you're going to put tannins inside the wine, the more it's going to be stable. Obviously on its own, it's not going to work. You need to mix it with something else, do a little cocktail. So usually you mix tannins with sulfites. Sulfites are becoming a big bad thing now. Simply because apparently it gives you a headache. There's a big chance of having a headache after drinking a bottle of wine. It's probably not just because of sulfites. And sulfites are, it's sulfur, so obviously it's going to give you a headache, or maybe it's bad stomach. But sulfites we put it in very small amounts in most of the red wines we make in Bordeaux because you have some tannins. And both are working as conservatives. So the idea for us is to do a mix between the two to balance and stabilize the wine for a few decades. And then when you age the bottle of wine, we're talking about aging bottles because we want to find a nice balance between the flavors, the tannins, the acidity, and it's only through time that you can achieve this. So through time means you need conservatives, tannins and sulfites. Just to give you an idea, sulfites are a replacement to something we were using before this. Until the 80s we were using lead, ammonium and arsenic to keep wine. I don't know about you, but I'm fine with a headache. I'm really fine with it. So for now, obviously we're going to need in the future to find some new things. You have a lot of natural wines right now with no sulfites, but they're not really stable. 5 or 6 years maximum, you can't drink it. So we need tannins and sulfites, and we are going to age the wine in here, so the wine is going to take all of the tannins from the barrels. Also from the barrels we need flavors or aromas, and the flavors come from the wood and the making of the barrel. When you make a barrel, you need to put it over the fire. And when you put it over the fire, you can decide on the intensity of this fire, which stick you use for the fire, how long you leave the barrels on fire. This is what we call a toast. And the toast usually you find it because you have inscriptions everywhere. And it's like an M for a medium. You also have 120, which is a strong toaster for a short amount of time. You also have some pure that you have over here, which is a very slow toast for a very long time. A B, which is for a burn. Every time it's going to change. The less you leave it on the fire, on small fire, the more you're going to have very subtle floral type of flavors. Flower, fruits, you can have some type of vanilla, caramel. The longer you leave it, the more you're going to go with toasty, buttery, spicy, smoky, torrefied, and then leather and dark chocolate, coffee, things like this. So the idea for us is to use different type of toast with the same wine inside, and then we're going to blend everything together. And this way is going to create some complexity balance. Instead of having something that is very floral, we're going to have something that has flower, but also some leather, tobacco, and eventually some spices. And that's because of the aging in barrels. Also, we use some different things to age the wine. We use the small barrels, these ones, which are the equivalent of 300 bottles of wine. We also use this one, 500 liters of wine. And so those ones are bigger, so you have less wood in contact with the wine that's inside. So it means that it's going to bring something really nice balance with no harsh tannins. And then we also have the amphoras that you have here. So the amphoras are made with clay. And you can find some clay from a lot of different places. We work with Italian clay. And so this clay is going to give a lot of minerality, roundness, and it brings out the sugar, the sweetness, I will say, of the wine. And also a lot of fruit. It's kind of weird because when you taste it, it's thick, like you know sweet white. It's kind of thick like this, syrupy almost, and you have a lot of sweetness, but there's no sugar left inside. It's all about the fruit, and it really tastes like a candy. It's very, very good. And when we mix this with the very tannic, woody, smoky type of wines and spicy ones, it's going to blend all perfectly together. And also, we don't need a lot of amphoras because we've got only 4 of those, simply because the clay loves water. It's going to drink a lot of water. And if it's not a very humid place, even if it is in a very humid place, eventually the clay is going to drink some water from inside. So usually we use approximately a bottle of wine a month because the clay is going to drink it. And yeah, it's going to drink a lot. And it's going to make some kind of a layer inside. So the more we use it, the less you're going to have some wine that is going to go inside the barrel. On the other hand, that's a good thing that works for clay, but that's not something that actually works for the barrels. The more we use the barrels, the more you're going to have a big layer of wine because it drinks lots of wine. But the problem is we're looking for tannins and like the flavors from the toast. But after 2-3 uses, you have a huge layer of wine on the wood. So if you put some more wine inside, the wines are going to take the flavors from the previous wines and not from the barrel itself. So we are going to sell them after 2 or 3 uses. We sell the barrels to distilleries. And yeah, mostly whiskey distilleries, cognac distilleries because it's just now in the north from here. And thanks to marketing, we are going to start selling to different things. You have a lot of brands that actually want to age their own alcohol in barrels of gold. And alcohols that do work, like rum, gin, that could be interesting. And alcohols where you don't really know. You have some vodka, tequila, sake. You also have some beers. Beers are probably the worst. But in the future it's going to be like this. We're going to make more and more alcoholic types of alcohol. So it means like very high level of alcohol, and we need the angel shell, evaporation of alcohol. So probably in the future we're going to make beers at 15 degrees at the beginning, but then we're going to age them for a year in barrels and we're going to do it. It's going to give some different flavors to many things, but that's probably the future. Then, so 2017, then you are going to taste 2017 but in Grand Cru Classé, Château de Pressac. So this way you will see the difference, same year but different wine. 6 months, second selection. First selection, main wine, 18 months in oak. And then you are also going to taste 2011, which is our oldest vintage that we still have. And 2011, 18 month also, first selection. So these two are the same wine but different years, and these two are the same year but different wines. Okay. So I'm going to go next door look for a mystery wine, and I also have some plates with cheese and sausage that I'm going to grant. So I'll be right back.